Okay, so this is the Neighborhoods launcher. It's a fork of We. So it's kind of the container, the scaffolding for groups to for users to create neighborhoods and to add applets to it. So the first thing we'd want to do is create a new neighborhoods, a new group. So to do that, it's kind of similar to the Discord interface. We're going to want to add a little image here, give our neighborhood a name, neighborhoods. So, and then you can see here on the sidebar, this is where the left sidebar is where you would see all the different neighborhoods that you're a part of, similar to Discord. So we're going to go here. And then for each neighborhood, you want to create a new profile for that. We do have some ideas and plans around making use of deep key so that each of your profiles are still connected through your conductor. So I've got a headshot here. Okay, so we've just successfully created a new neighborhood and a profile within that neighborhood. And so this is sort of the homepage of the neighborhood. You can see there's some sort of settings to see applets, some information about applets. The main thing that we're going to want to do right now is add an applet that we've created from outside of the Neighborhoods launcher. So today we have a to-do applet to share with all of you. And basically an applet is just a web app file. So there's a standard for bundling applications in Holochain, and one of those is the web app, which bundles the app and the UI. So the Neighborhoods launcher is really just is like an engine to run these web app files that conform to the applet standard. So just going to install this web app file, and then when we have the marketplace, it's basically going to be an applet that stores these web app files. Okay, so this is we've installed the applet, but now this pop-up is sort of like a bit of a wizard for configuring the widgets within the applet. So Emaline had shown that we want to allow groups and people to sort of customize and define how they interact with resources within the applet. So this is just sort of a way to see what the options are. So this on the right here is all the different widgets that are defined within what we call a widget library. So each group will have a widget library, which will store all the different ways of interacting with resources. Right now we have 4. So we have the star, the thumbs up, thumbs down, the heat scale, and then the check mark. We'll be able to change this whenever we want, but we'll start with this one. And it shows a little bit of an example of what that might look like, depending on the type of applet or resource. So it's selected, we'll save that. So now this is the to-do applet within the Neighborhoods launcher. So we're going to go ahead and create a new to-do list. The classic example I use is groceries list. Whoops, not groceries. Groceries. Yeah, so say we need, I don't know, we're gonna have a potluck and we need to coordinate who's getting what, or to figure out what ingredients we actually want or what people want to eat. So we're gonna add some items to our grocery list. Okay, so what we're looking at here is these items are resources within the to-do applet. So these are sort of defined by the applet, but on the left and right, these are SenseMaker related concepts. So this is the widget for assessing a resource. So the to-do item resources, we want to create assessments on these resources so that we can do interesting computations across the assessment data, to rank or to filter, to derive insights of the collective interactions of the group. So I'm going to go ahead and so basically these assessments will be created along a dimension, and the dimension, so these we kind of like pulling from data science, we model assessments as a multidimensional data model. Groups can define their own assessments and create data points along those assessments. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and say that I really want some apples, so that I'm going to assess that as like really, really hot. Like definitely we need apples. Oranges, like honestly, could skip the oranges, don't need them. Bananas, for sure, like really important for me, but not as important as apples. So I've just gone ahead and assessed all three of these grocery items. And what we can see here on the left, the SenseMaker context, these are, again, this is another thing from the SenseMaker, not from the to-do applet. And basically these are computations across the assessment data that's stored in the group's SenseMaker. And so right now it's mostly just filtering and reducing across certain dimensions. And so these are all the different contexts that have been defined. This widget creates assessments along a dimension that is related to the urgent context. So if I click here, basically what this context is doing is it's filtering assessments, or it's filtering resources that have an average assessment. So it uses methods to compute the average value of assessments. Right now, there's just one assessment per resource because it's just me. Maybe we'll get around to showing multiple people in the same neighborhoods. And what this does is it's filtered resources by whatever has the chili or flame emoji value or assessment value. So you can see in the actual list, there's oranges, but that gets filtered out here. And of course, the idea is that this sort of generic pattern of assessing resources and then doing computations across them, like aggregation and reduction type computations, can allow interesting sort of feedback loops and insights, beyond just what ingredients do we need for this potluck. So that's sort of the to-do app in action. I want to show the dashboard as well, but maybe did anyone have anything they wanted to say?
Could also change the widgets too.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe should we do that first and then go to the dashboard? Okay, so before we get to the dashboard, I just want to show how we can change the reaction widget so that we can start assessing these resources along a different dimension to add, just to add a higher dimensionality to this data model in our SenseMaker. So if we go back to the neighborhoods homepage, we can see here installed applets to do. If we have more applets installed, there'd be a longer list. And here there's this option to configure the widgets of the applet. So this brings up that same screen that popped up right after we installed the applet. And again, we see the multiple options. So now I'm going to switch it to the thumbs up, thumbs down. We see what that kind of looks like. Or actually, maybe we'll switch it to this one. the importance. So I think one of them, some of them look nicer than the others, basically. So we just switched the applet or the widget for the applet. So let's go back to the to-do applet. And okay, now we can see that the widget has changed. So now when I go through here and assess the resources, it's along a different dimension, which has a different sort of meaning to it. So the heat scale could mean something to the group. And this is actually part of sort of like specific culture, generic tech. You know, groups sort of, they can define the meaning of dimensions and what that means within that group. So this is sort of that in action here. Maybe the star means like, oh, this needs to be followed up with, or this needs to be looked at today, for example. So I'm going to go ahead and assess this orange, give it a star rating. And so this is the widget for assessing. And then on the left is the widget for displaying the value of the output assessment of a method. So methods take a set of input assessments and then compute an output assessment. And this output assessment here is just the total number of stars for this resource. Right now it's just 1, these ones have 0. And now if we go to the SenseMaker context, we'll see that now that we've assessed this, it will actually show up in this context, the important context, because it meets the criteria of the threshold when it does the filtering. And then these ones still show up in this context because they have the assessments from the heat scale dimension. So now I think maybe we could take a look at the dashboard, which, so let's do that.
And just to mention that the context here is all these contexts are predefined by the SenseMaker, but any applet developer can create as many contexts as they want to kind of do lists of resources according to some sense making that the group is doing. So the applet developer can initially, for now, only the applet developer can create those config files. But in the future, with this wizard that we are developing, we want community activators to be able to modify or even create brand new config files for applets, which will allow all kinds of new interactions. And the dashboard is where you can see how that looks like.
Yeah, so the dashboard is sort of a neighborhoods wide view into the data that's in the SenseMaker. So all the assessments that people are generating through their interactions and through their, basically through their interactions within all of the different applets. And this is sort of meant to just be like a holistic view into what people in this group are doing. So this tab is all the resources in the neighborhood. So it gives you the resource hash, which user created the assessment, and then it lists the different dimensions that exist, and then it shows, well, it shows right now it's showing 2 things, but it's showing the value of this assessment along its given dimension. So this assessment was a flame emoji on the perceived heat dimension. We can see here this resource from when we assess it with the star it's showing up as a value. It has 1 assessment along this dimension. And what's interesting too is we can still assess dimensions, or we can still assess resources from the dashboard. So maybe we don't want to go all the way to the applet to assess something, so we can just come here and create an assessment, and then we see that shows up again in the dashboard because it's a new assessment. And
in the future, we also want to have a hint of the UI of the resource that you are assessing in the dashboard. So right now you can only see the hash, but we want to have a generic way for rendering the widget inside the dashboard, so we can. And this is really tricky because we're mixing DNAs, right? We're trying to get a generic way to render widgets. So this is one of the future interactions we want to do. Another thing to remember is that each neighborhood has their own sense maker. So sense maker is not, it's for each neighborhood. And if you eventually in the future, we want neighborhoods to communicate, and we'll have inter-sense maker communication. So one sense maker can talk to the other.
Yeah, I guess maybe the last thing I could show is up here, these tabs are contexts again. So contexts are defined at the neighborhood level, not at the applet level. So that's why they show up here in the dashboard. So if we click here, it'll show all the assessments all of the resources that have been assessed along the heat dimension, which is associated with the urgent context. And then again here, the important the important dimension so it's gonna filter the resources according to how the context is defined, and that can be viewed from this sort of neighborhoods wide dashboard as well.
Cool. And you can also invite more members into the neighborhood, and then you can see.
Yeah, Wes, it would be pretty cool to just spend a little bit of time on member management.
Sure, yeah, let's go through those steps. So I have two instances of the neighborhoods launcher, so they're separate conductors, trying to emulate, two different people on different devices. So each user has a public key. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this from the second user, copy their public key, and then come over to the first user that has already created the neighborhoods. And this is currently how we manage invitations and members. You just invite them directly through their public key. So if we go back to the second user, we can see that there's an invitation here to join this neighborhood. So you have to invite a specific a member directly with their public key, and then you have to accept the invitation. Okay, so there we go. This second user has now joined the neighborhoods. So now we're gonna have to create a second person. Okay, so now what we see in the homepage for the second user is applets to join. So you don't automatically join the applet. That's currently how it's set up. We could change that, but that web-app file hasn't been stored anywhere that can be accessed by other members. So to join, we're going to have to go and upload the same web-app file, which was this one. And there's a funny little bug where we just have to do it twice. Okay. So now this is the second user. They've joined, and now they're configuring their widgets for the applet. And right now we have the widget configuration as a per user setting, but we are thinking about what would that look like if it's only certain roles are allowed to actually set the widget configuration. So yeah, let's go ahead and choose this one again. Okay, so now we can see the groceries list is here. And look at that. So there's existing ones. I can go in.
They already have values, as you can see on the left.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are the assessments from the first user. I can go ahead and assess them myself. Right. So now these are the average values.
Averages. Mm-hmm.
And you know, I can go ahead and add something else like broccoli. And if I switch to the second user, we can see that that's here, that's showed up here. Or maybe I want to create a new list. And we'll see
Yeah,
that.
and interesting to see that each user is seeing different sets of widgets, and they can't see the assessments made on the other dimension unless they switch to the same widgets. So the data is there, but it's not visible on the UI.
Yeah, but if we go to the dashboard of the second agent, we should see all the widgets that have already been used.
Yeah.
What's happening here? Yeah, so that's mostly what we have for like members and managing them. It's pretty basic at the moment, but it is working. You can see the assessments that your other group members, other neighbors are generating in real time. So that's nice.
And we have three kind of working applets. The to-do applet is the more developed one, but we do have a time tracker applet and a feed applet in the way, almost there. So, and we are in contact with applet developers as well to start building applets that the neighborhoods are requesting, and that's where the marketplace will be interesting. So we can bind the needs from neighborhoods to applet developers to work for them and build the applets. And that's the near future.
Yeah, just to clarify kind of where we're at, it's like, you know, since the end of 2021, start of 2022, basically, we've been building out all of this stuff. I mean, including the wizard and the dashboards and the sense maker as just open source, freely available software. And then we're kind of turning toward the end of this year to build Neighborhoods Neighborhood, which is the marketplace with these matching features, you know, with the intention of bringing a lot more applets on board and getting pilot communities set up with the means of using neighborhoods through our own neighborhood. So we're dog fooding too.